Folks, today's episode is extremely special to both myself and the rest of the team here at the Hit Lab, and I want to thank the Hit Lab creative team, the best podcast production team on planet Earth, for helping make this happen today. And I want to thank all of the team that surround Tim and himself alone for joining me today and making this episode happen, folks. I read this morning that 5,000 people in the U.S. are diagnosed with ALS every single year, and as you're going to hear in the upcoming episode, there's a lot that we don't know about it, and we need to find the solution, right? So there are amazing organizations that are fighting the good fight, and I highly recommend the one that is represented in the studio with me today, TShawStrong, right? So check them out online, TShawStrong.com. And on Instagram at TShawTruth. Folks, go on their website, get familiar, check them out, make a donation, join an event. We've got work to do, right? And what I do know is that together we can accomplish great things. So thanks so much to everybody for making this episode possible, and enjoy.
The real success stories told by the people who lived them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows. And we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the Hitstreak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and joining me in the Hit Lab today, folks, I've got an extra special treat for you, right? So this is one of the most unique episodes that we've ever done here at the Hitstreak, and well, you know what? I'm just going to get right into it. But first, let me welcome my co-host. This is a guy that I literally grew up in elementary school with, played baseball with as a teammate all the way from childhood up even into the college years. We've done business together. I'm proud to call him one of my oldest friends, not oldest by age, but oldest by tenure. My man, Steve Shelton. Steve, thanks so much for hanging with me today. Dude, we got a lot to do today.
We have a lot to cover. Appreciate you having us on. We wanted the opportunity to talk about this new foundation, and you're going to provide that platform for us, and we appreciate that. We talked about it at the golf tournament, and Tim's got a big message to share, and I think this is a good opportunity to do that. Absolutely.
Well, folks, help me welcome our guest today. He is an honorary Tennessee Titan captain. He is a retired Tennessee Titan. He's a two-time author, an ALS Warrior, and a self-proclaimed semi-pro golfer. Folks, these are just the facts. Folks, help me welcome my guy, Tim Shaw. Tim, I can't thank you enough for being here today, brother.
You are so welcome. I have to tell you that this is my first podcast using my tablet. So this is historic, and I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Well, anything that you do that involves you, or anything that happened that involves you, is historic, brother. So let me just call a spade, right? I think you can still say that these days. You know what I mean? But brother, it's an absolute honor to be here with you. I love everything that you're doing. Steve and I are wearing our swag from the event this year. It's one of my favorite pieces. It looks really, really good, and we're going to talk all about that. But I want to get right into it, Tim. And as a guy that faith is the center of my universe, it's the center of my being. It's what drives me every single day. I know that we have that in common, right? So tell me a little bit about what your faith means to you, brother.
My faith is my foundation. It's the most important thing to me and the most important thing about me. My faith is the one thing I want everyone to know about me. I believe that God sustains me daily and gives me strength and a purpose. If I didn't have my faith, I would be a mess and probably wouldn't want to continue living. I'm so thankful for all that God does in my life and through my life.
That's perfect. We're batting 1,000. That's the first hit of the day right there, right? Well, dude, can you tell me a little bit more about your faith story? Where were you? When did you find Christ?
My parents have strong faith and raised my brothers in the Christian faith. I have had a relationship with God since I was an older child. My parents lived out the example of what it means to follow Jesus. One of the big things I learned from my parents was how to love people with action. They were always taking people into our home or giving what they had to others. So I had that Christian foundation from my family and from learning in church. But it was really when I left home to go to college that my faith went from just something my family did to becoming my own personal relationship with God. I had to make my own choices about what I believed, how I would act, and really which direction my life would go.
Well, man, I know, I've wrestled with it over and over again for a variety of reasons, most of them self-inflicted. But, the cool thing is you can always find your way back. And one of the things that has really helped me kind of stay resilient and consistent in our faith is I can't remember who it was that told me that. I think it was my one of my friends and former pastor, Pastor Roger, who has moved out to California. But he told me, he's like, Nick, you find Christ in other people. You see him in other people. You know what I mean? And that really, like, for me, it's like, well, if I'm going to be, somebody that is leading by example and living through my faith, then people have to be able to find him by simply looking at me, hearing me, seeing me, all those things, right? I know, Steve, this has been a big centerpiece in Tim's life throughout this whole thing. You guys go back a long way, and even you guys golfed together and did a whole bunch of stuff together, and the stories that you guys have told are awesome and hysterical all at the same time. What's it been like, going through this, not necessarily with him, but just, alongside of him, along the way?
Yeah, it's, it's been a little difficult, but, of course, I'm not going through it day to day, right? The cool thing about Tim is that he actually connects to people through, I think, Christianity more than anything, and I noticed that. A lot of people noticed that early on. I was introduced to Tim in 2011. He was still in the league. Mm-hmm. So we were playing golf. We were throwing football. We were, hanging out. And even during that part of his life, I noticed that a lot of people gravitated towards him. And, at the end of the day, that was kind of through his faith. I mean, majority of that was through his faith. And I think that's what I've noticed even now is, he continues to inspire people. He's got a great story and he's done a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I think it's faith that's driving that with him. And he and I have always talked about religion back and forth. I grew up a really devout Christian, and then through life issues, questioned religion, questioned God, all those things.
Likewise.
And then have come back to religion. I've gone away from it, have gone back. And Tim's consistently always talked to me about Christianity, about God. So that's something that's been, it's a consistency thing for him. He's never let up. And to me, it draws me closer to him because he's willing to have objective conversations.
That's right.
About that stuff without his faith waning.
There's a sales lesson in business in there, right? So we know that in sales, it takes a certain amount of touches before somebody becomes a lead or makes a decision to buy or whatever it may be. And, he was probably a great salesman, for lack of better terms, because he stayed consistently with you on it. Right. Tim, if I'm being totally honest and, address the elephant in the room, like, have you wrestled with your faith with all that you've been through, man?
I have definitely kept it real with God through all the tough stuff I'm going through. But I haven't asked God why. You see, bad things happen in this world. The Bible tells us that bad things will happen. Life is hard. For everyone. I don't see why I should be excused from hard stuff. I'm not better than anyone else. Life just happens. So I thank God for all the good things he continues to give me.
So, I mean, we all struggle with it, I think, on a regular basis, a daily basis. That's, one of the hardest lessons to learn about your faith is that you find your faith, you find the gifts in the struggle, because that's where you learn. If everything was easy, then there really would be no reason to find your faith and to do those things, right? So the struggle is the gifts, because that's where the learning happens. It's just like in life. If you strike out when you're at the plate and the pitcher got you on a breaking ball, well, you learn something and you go up with that knowledge the next time you go up to the plate, and that's an advantage. And it's the same way with life all the time, Well, let me ask you this, Tim, because you've gone through more than anybody else that I've had sitting over there, and you might argue with me about that. But through all of this, what are the gifts and the blessings that you have indeed found?
My goodness, I have experienced so many blessings through the journey of being sick. Endless opportunities to speak, to travel, to impact people, to make a difference. Just countless things. Let's be honest, I was a pretty good football player, but I'm way more impactful because of my disease than I was because of football. One blessing I've experienced is my family. Because of my sickness, a lot of my family have moved near each other. We have spent so much more time together because of it. The biggest blessing I have gotten because of my disease is perspective. We could talk about perspective this whole podcast, but I will save that for next time. But I have been given the gift of perspective. I know how fragile life is. I see how precious time is. See, most people waste time, but I don't. Most people do things that don't matter, but I don't. Because I have the perspective of what really, really matters. Like I said, I could talk about this for a while.
No doubt, man. And I agree with you. Life is totally about perspective. And everybody has their own unique perspective. That's what makes it cool. Everybody's got their own, and it changes day in and day out as time goes, it's putting things in perspective like we're doing today. And I'm asking this question not just for everybody else, but also myself. What advice do you have for those who continually struggle with their faith, or maybe they're struggling with it right now?
For anyone struggling with your faith, I would say, good. Welcome to a real relationship. I don't know a relationship worth having that doesn't go through some struggles. A relationship with God is the most worthy of struggle. I believe we should tell God how we feel. I think He can handle it. So if you're struggling with your faith, I'd encourage you to not give up. Keep seeking God. Keep reading the Bible. Keep praying. There is not a better way.
Man, I couldn't have said it better myself. That is powerful. That is powerful. Steve, again, how much has this guy been of an influence to you? And you're a dad now, you're a husband, you're a dad. You're raising kids. How much of an impact has just being a friend of his and walking through this kind of with him and even in just limited experience, how's it affected you and made you a better husband, better dad at home?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the simplest level, it forces you to, put any kind of issues that you have in perspective. I think before I met Tim, if I had an issue in life, I viewed that as something that was negative to me and only me, and I was maybe being picked on, or I wasn't chosen to do something in a positive light. But being around Tim kind of forces you to understand that everyone's going through their own thing, their own battle, and it literally is the thing that I think about anytime that whether I'm in pain or I'm not having a good time, or I feel I have negative thoughts. The first thing that I will do now is I'll sit and think about whether it be Tim or other people that I've experienced that I know that are going through more difficult times, and it kind of makes you sit back for a second and take a deep breath and realize that even if you see people having the greatest life of all time, you have to assume that they're going through their own issues. I didn't really think that way before I met Tim. Just from a simple perspective, that's probably been the biggest effect on me on a daily basis.
Well, Tim, I could not bring you into the studio if we did not talk football. Right. And especially with all the stuff that's going on in the league today and everything else, dude. So I got to know a little bit about Penn State. All right. So if you don't mind, what were just some of your favorite and most or greatest moments at Penn State?
I will start by saying that I loved my time with Penn State. Football was hard, but I had a blast. That program definitely prepared me for the NFL. Okay, I will give you a couple of highlights. First one has to be the 2005 season. My junior year. We had just come off of a 3-win season and a 4-win season, so what we did that year was special. We only lost one game. We won the Big Ten championship. We beat Florida State in the Orange Bowl, and finished 3rd in the country. As far as team accomplishments, that was the best. A cool memory for me personally was on senior day in Happy Valley. We were beating Michigan State like 17-14. They had one last drive to try to win, and I had 2 sacks on that drive to finish them off.
Yeah.
A special way to exit. And 10, bonus memory for you. My final college game was in the Outback Bowl against Tennessee. We beat them and I had a sock. That fact comes in very handy living in Nashville.
No doubt, man. No doubt. You know, I don't think I realized that you were on the field in that Outback Bowl. That's pretty cool. Did you know that, Steve?
Later on, but of course I didn't know at the time.
Because, growing up here, and you went to UT, so, go Vols, right?
Yeah, go Vols.
Go Vols. But not that day. Not that day. Well, Tim, you probably played some, especially at the D1 level, on a championship team. Who were some of the greatest teammates that you played with there and why?
When I think about my greatest teammates, I first think about my best friends. Brandon Ream, a punter. We shared a love for golf and life. And Gerald Cadogan, an offensive lineman. We shared our faith and a love for music. Those two made life fun. But when I think about my greatest teammates, 2 other guys come to mind. First is Sean McHugh. He is a beast of a man, even to this day. He played fullback. Most people don't know, but I played my freshman year at tailback. Maybe when we have time I'll tell you about my 134 high school touchdowns.
Wow.
So Sean looked out for me. He showed me how to conduct myself. And I knew how to work hard, but Sean set the standard for pushing yourself and pulling your teammates along with you. The second guy was Paul Poslusny. Paul and I did everything football together. Lifting, film study. This was after I moved to linebacker. He was a great teammate because he was a great competitor. So we competed and created this linebacker room that just pushed and pushed. We led the team and excellence was the expectation. And we had some damn good defenses. I can remember Paul and I looking at each other in the middle of a tough series on the field and just knowing, hey, these guys haven't worked like we have. Let's find a way to stop them. And we would.
Steve, it's anytime you know that as a team and a unit, you've gone out there and you've crushed it in practice, done all the work, you've done the preparation and everything else, there's not much of a sweeter feeling than taking the field against an opponent, knowing that you did everything you had to do to go out there and dominate.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have any experience at Tim's level. And I would assume that it's an amazing feeling when you're doing it against Tennessee. But yeah, I think you have to look at pro athletes and truly respect everything they do on a daily basis, from mental preparation, physical preparation, and then going through that season-long journey. That's a long journey. It's up and down. And to be able to compete at a high level, especially professionals, for multiple years is, I think it puts you in a 1% category.
It's I still, one of the hardest things I have to do is when I'm describing the difference between like playing baseball in college to the minor league level. It's like, in college, you're still around normal people. Like it's from an athletic being, they might be smart or whatever else, but at the professional level, everybody's like a superhuman, and that's the way it is in D1 football. and then again going to the NFL, which kind of leads us into our next part of the segment, right? So he is an honorary captain of your Tennessee Titans, and I mean, dude, the Titans the franchise has had some amazing moments here in Nashville along the way. The Music City Miracle is one that stands out to me, and so many others, so many great players. Blaine Bishop has sat right over there where Tim sits, and we had a killer episode. I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more. Tim, let's talk Titans. What were some of your greatest and favorite moments as a Titan?
The Titans. Oh boy, getting paid to hit people. Life doesn't get better. I have to say that one of my favorite moments was my second season here. Cuts had just been made, and the team voted for captains. And guys kept coming up to me, "Hey, I voted for you." I remember thinking, I'm about to be named captain. I had been cut the previous 3 years, so being named captain was a huge deal to me. And probably my proudest moment as a pro. Gosh, my most memorable moments on the field, ironically, are moments I lost my mind, going crazy after making a tackle, blocking a punt Thursday night versus Pittsburgh, crushing Arian Foster in a backfield on 4th down, absolutely smashing a kick returner. Not the biggest games or most heroic plays, but life as a football player and the plays you live for.
Absolutely, and I know I've been to games. I actually got to watch you play, and the Tennessee always had a big advantage in the 13th man. I always remember hearing about, right? So the crowd would go crazy when they would do those things, and it's tough. It's football time in Tennessee is just a special time. I know it's loud at Neyland, and it gets loud at old Nissan Stadium too, don't it, Steve?
Oh yeah. Well, I just call it Tim throwing an Arian Foster reference in there. That's an ex-Tennessee running back. He picks his spots. Tim picks his spots to try to tell me that Penn State's always been a little better than Tennessee.
No doubt, man. No doubt. So one of the greatest gifts that I've learned as a parent is the life lessons that you learn through sports, and even as a dad of a 14-year-old son, and watching him play and watching him and grow on the baseball field and other things, I start to reference all the things that I learned along the way, and it's crazy. A lot of the things that I learned in about life through baseball, I didn't realize I was learning it until I was going through a moment in which I took that lesson that I learned and applied it, right? So, Steve, I know that playing both sports and doing business together, I know we've talked about that a lot, right? So when it comes to you, how does like the life lessons from sports, how do you apply those in business and being a dad and everything else today? Yeah,
I mean, I'm going through it with my oldest child. He's yet to play a real team sport. And I've been really sitting down and thinking about everything that, I went through, you went through, Tim went through as it relates to sports competition. And, I've kind of come to this conclusion that if my child doesn't want to play team sports, I'm okay with that, but they still need to compete. Right. So I think it's competition just as much as it is sports, and being able to understand what it feels like to lose, but then also understand what it feels like to train hard, to prepare, to do the things off the field or off the court or wherever right. You're competing. You've got to be able to go through that and feel that pain, feel that timeline, and then see that turn into a 4th place or a 3rd place or a 2nd place and eventually a 1st place. That's kind of what I've taken from it in business as well as with my children, is that if you don't want to play team sports, that's okay, but we are going to compete. We're going to find a platform to compete, because in life it is very competitive, unfortunately. And you've got to go out there and understand how to kind of go through the suck,
Right.
quote unquote, and come out the other end, in a way that betters your life, betters your family life, betters your finances, whatever it may be. So I'm really focused on taking my past experiences and apply it to competition one way or the other. And if team sports is a part of that, that's great. If it's not, I still feel confident that finding a platform for my children to compete is what's going to help them, come out the other side as a very wise adult.
Agreed. And we talked about perspective early in the episode, right, Tim? So, they've heard about Steve's perspective and even mine. Let's hear a little bit from yours. Best life lessons you learned in sports and how it's helped you deal with everything you're dealing with today.
I love this question. I know there are some other great teachers of life, but sports are definitely up there among the best. I think athletes that have reached a certain level of success have an advantage in life because of the lessons they had to learn along the way. One thing that sport taught me is that there's always someone out there, somewhere, working to be better than you. I remember being probably a high school junior. I was the best athlete I could see in my school, conference, district, region. And my coach said to me, "They're out there. Athletes who are more gifted, more talented, stronger, faster, and they are working. Do you just want to be the best around here? Or do you want to be the best anywhere? So make sure that those guys never outwork you." That is a lesson I've always carried with me, and it applies to all of life. One life lesson that really applies to my life now is this: focus on what's right in front of you. You can learn from the last play, but you can't play it again. And you can't play the next play yet, so there's no use worrying about that. The play right now deserves your full attention and effort. Man, this is so applicable to me now. If I look back, I will miss what I used to be able to do. If I look forward, I will be depressed about what's coming. But I can focus on the right now and enjoy being here talking with you.
Well, if this is the highlight of your day, we got to get you out more. That's all I tell you. But no, this is the highlight of my day as well. And, I agree with you. It's so important to, with my son, we're teaching him how to time block, right? So he has what's called a power list. It's something he fills out every night. He puts all of his critical tasks for the next day, moves them over in time, learning how to manage his time and so on and so forth. And one of the things he's got to do every day is he reads for 20 minutes of a book that's approved by his parents. And but at the bottom, on the bottom left, he either writes that he won the day or he learned. There's never a loss. You win or you learn. But he only gets paid on the days that he wins. You know what I'm saying? But that's the thing, is like you win or you learn. And that's the beautiful thing about sports is nobody's undefeated. So, and every time you learn, you're smarter, stronger, better. You're a better version of yourself every time you learn those lessons, right? So, man, I couldn't agree with you more. So we're going to move on to the next segment, which is, life after football. And like you said before, Tim, it's kind of where you've made some of your biggest impact on earth today. And as a Titan fan, I knew who you were, but I've definitely learned a lot more about you and your story since then with all that you've done, because you've been a busy, busy boy. You know what I'm saying? A very busy boy. So, if you don't mind, so obviously, the folks watching with us, they can see you're here with us in your chair, your state-of-the-art chair, if I'm being honest, which is, it's the unbelievable setup. And the fact that we're even able to have this conversation, technology and everything else, it's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I can't say that, I feel for you or anything like that, because I couldn't imagine what it's like to be you and go through what you're doing. But I can tell you that, this is going to seem silly saying this, but one of the things that I've learned is I've got some advanced arthritis in my back. So I work out every day with my son, and some days it just hurts. It just hurts. And today was one of those days where it really hurt bad. And boy, let me tell you my perspective, because I knew what I was getting ready to do when I came in today. So if you don't mind, Tim, with as much detail as you'd like to go, can you tell us a little bit about how you found out about your diagnosis?
It was the 2012 football season. I had a minor shoulder sprain. No big deal. That was the beginning of discovering that I was sick. 2013 off-season, I was trying to get my shoulder stronger. It wasn't getting better. My right hand was also weaker. I wasn't as fluid or as athletic as I was used to feeling. But it was tiny stuff. I just continued to work through it. Preseason came, and there was a small drop in my performance. I knew something was wrong but thought it was no big deal. I got cut. I still wanted to play, so I kept working out, meanwhile trying to figure out what was wrong with me medically. I had a series of MRI done and some nerve tests. All inconclusive. You see, ALS is a diagnosis of elimination. You have to eliminate everything else until it's the only thing left.
Wow.
I came to the conclusion that because my body would no longer perform at the high level I demanded, God was telling me that it was time to move on from football. So in March 2014 I retired. In April, I had to follow up with a neurologist at Vanderbilt. I went alone, not expecting anything to come from it. After a couple of nerve tests, the doctor sat on a stool and rolled closer to me. He said, "Tim, I believe you have ALS. I want you to get a second opinion, but I'm very certain that you have it."
It's something that, awareness is so important. And I got to say, man, I didn't know a whole lot about it other than, until really it hit home here in Nashville with you doing what you were doing and everything else. Steve, I know you've been friends with him since he was a player. Watching him go through this when you were there along the way. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, Tim and I, like I said earlier, we would hang out, we would play golf. He'd have me come throw football for him when he was training to try out for some other teams after he got cut.
That's cool.
And I just remember we were playing golf. We were playing the Presidents at Hermitage, and we were riding in the golf cart, and he kind of turned to me and said, "Hey, I went to the Mayo Clinic and they think I have ALS." And of course, me being, someone who's like questioning everything, I'm sitting here going, well, maybe it's something else, and maybe we need to go try another doctor. And of course, he was already doing those things, of course. But, I was kind of in disbelief. I wouldn't have thought with all the football players out there that this guy sitting beside me is the one who has ALS.
And they don't look sick when they first find out they have it. Like, he's still in peak physical condition by most people's standards, Yeah,
Tim was just telling me that his right arm was a little weaker than usual, but of course he's still trying out. He's still training to try out. So 2-3 days a week, he's running sprints and doing drills and flying off to different camps. Because I think if I remember in week 5, 6, or 7 of that year, maybe you had tried out for like the Colts or the Titans or something along those lines. So he was, I kind of was like, well, maybe the Mayo got it. Maybe Mayo Clinic got it wrong.
Sure.
Right. That's the biggest hope. And of course, he's still out there playing golf. He's out driving me. He's doing all that kind of stuff. So, and then of course, over time, it became apparent that, the diagnosis was accurate. Fast forward to now, I get a lot of people asking me, how's Tim? How's Tim doing? And I think the biggest misconception about ALS is that, it affects the brain.
Right.
And what I tell everybody is that mentally he's sharper than ever.
Yeah, no doubt.
Continuing to get smarter the same way as if he would in a healthy body. It's just his body is not communicating with his brain. So, I think a lot of people kind of tiptoe around it, and they think, hey, maybe his mind is running parallel with his body. Mm-hmm. But it's, it's not the case. So I think that's the biggest misconception about ALS is that, the physical represents the mental, and it's just not the case. Yeah.
Well, here's the one thing I know about you is you're really you're probably one of the more disciplined people about surrounding yourself with the right proximity, the right people that are part of your future to grow, especially in business and stuff. So like that was one of the first things that I learned when I learned about you guys having a relationship together is that like, this guy's he's smart. He's real smart, and that's probably like when I think about Tim, actually, all the stuff I know that you guys have done in business is what impresses me the most. And that's something that's like, I don't think enough people know about how like renowned of a businessman he is.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people know that, Tim's involved in a lot of things, retail businesses, real estate, nonprofit foundations, outreach with the Titans. Tim during the season, he goes to Titans practices, 2-3 days a week. And he's meeting with special teams, looking at film, breaking it down.
That's awesome. Working
with special team coordinator. He's got a really good relationship with the front office at the Titans. So, super busy guy. And the coolest thing about Tim is that post-diagnosis, what he really wanted to do was travel and play golf. Because I think a majority of people would kind of throw it in and say, hey, I've got some bad news, it's going to affect my family. I'm depression setting in, all this kind of stuff. And he went the opposite route. I think a lot of people were just wanting to watch his journey, right? So be a part of the trips or be a part of, kind of any conversations that he was willing to have about it, just because you're watching someone with a high degree of strength in action. And, so we've done a lot of traveling. He ended up playing Augusta. We've played, Pebble Beach multiple times together. We went out to Arizona and played Troon. We've played Shinnecock, which is the U.S. Open course in New York. And he's probably played twice as many as I have. But, I am proud that, he's kind of been he's been the leader of, kind of a group of ours to say, let's travel, let's go see things, let's go play golf and have good life experiences, even post-diagnosis. And it's, it's been, not only is it highly motivating, but it's great to be in his presence because of the positivity he brings to everybody.
No doubt. People don't always remember what you told them, but they always remember how you made them feel, right? Always. Well, Tim, this is a 2-part question. We'll start with part 1. First finding out about this. I honestly, I can't even imagine, how I would feel if I found out news like that. I can only hope that I would handle it as gracefully as you did, and there may not have been some graceful moments, but can you tell me about the thoughts and emotions as you were going through this in the very beginning?
I knew what ALS was and how deadly it is because my sister-in-law had just lost her mother to it that February. She was bedridden just 6 months after diagnosis and died a year later. So I was scared and sad. I wasn't afraid to die. I was afraid of the process of losing all my abilities. I'm still afraid of that. It was a crazy feeling at first, because I'm looking at myself and I'm living, playing golf, traveling. You could not tell I was sick. I looked like a retired athlete. I could barely tell myself. So I had this conflict. My mind knew I was sick, but I didn't really feel sick. So my mind and feelings were all over the place. As time passed, slowly but surely, but not slowly enough, I began to show greater signs of my disease. But as I mentally and emotionally learned to face my immortality, shout out to counseling, I also realized that I was in for a long fight. See, at first I thought I was going to die soon. The average person lives 2 to 5 years with ALS. But my trajectory is much slower than that. So I went from a mindset of getting ready to die, where I felt scattered, and moved to a mindset where I was more in battle mode, preparing myself to fight every day, for a long time. And those emotions of fear and sadness are still there as I experience loss very often. That's a little look into what I'm going through.
Well, man, thank you for sharing that. The Hitstreak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the HitLab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more. Tim, again, I'd be a fool to say if I understood or had any idea of what you're going through. I can only hope that I would handle it as gracefully as you have. And you mentioned shout out to some of the support you got. Well, I know I had a meeting with you years ago with my dad at your home, and seeing how your family has rallied around you and how this has been something that brought you guys together, which is a blessing. You find blessings in the most remarkable and uncharacteristic places, right? But Tim, tell me a little bit more. Talk to me about the strength and courage, or even the feeling of responsibility you feel to be an ambassador and a face and a voice for everyone that has been and is affected with this illness.
I knew that once I went public with my diagnosis that I would have the opportunity to help others who suffer from ALS. That's one of the reasons I waited 4 months to go public. I needed to process things myself before I could handle anything more. And sure enough, the opportunities came and keep coming. I do feel a great sense of responsibility to use my platform to help others. I never liked the saying, God doesn't give us more than we can handle. I think He absolutely does. But He promised to never leave us. That means that He is with me through this mess called ALS. And I need Him every single day. I believe that it's my responsibility to do everything I can to bring awareness to this disease. God has given me the ability to raise money, so I do that. Guys, whatever we are going through, we aren't meant to go through alone. And whatever we can do to help someone else, even just one person, we should. Just because I'm sick doesn't mean that I get to be selfish and focus on myself. In fact, when we are struggling is when we should help someone else even more so. Doing for others takes the focus off of our pain and struggle and makes us feel better. I dare you to try it.
I do too. I dare them to try it as well. There you go, folks. I mean, seriously, could you get much more perspective than that right there? That leads us to our next segment, which is all about the mission, right? And I think that probably one of the greatest efforts or movements I've ever seen, especially in the time of social media, was the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. That's when I really feel like that was, for lack of better terms, that was kind of like ALS's coming out party as far as like what it meant, how it affected people, and so on and so forth. And anybody and everybody that you could think of participated in that sucker, right? So, like, you know, he's going to tell us about it, but literally, like, I think I even saw former President Donald Trump dump a bucket of ice on his head and something like that. And you challenged other people, and I got challenged, and we did it. And it was great, and it meant something. So, Tim, tell us a little bit about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, because if I'm not mistaken, that was you had a big hand in making that public.
The ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was absolutely incredible. If you were alive in August 2014, you heard about this phenomenon, and hopefully you dumped freezing water on your head. If you hear my voice and did not do this in 2014, first of all, shame on you, and second of all, go and do it now. Like right now. We will wait. The crazy thing about the Ice Bucket Challenge for me was the timing of it. So I was diagnosed in April. I'm telling my family and close friends, but nobody else. I don't really know how to tell everyone. I'm processing all that comes with it. It's been 4 months and people are starting to hear murmurs and rumors. So it's time for me to tell my news. Well, here begins this crazy thing. The internet is going bankers with everyone dumping water on their heads. This is my time. I'm not saying that the Ice Bucket Challenge was created so that I could share my news, but it basically was. So I contact the Titans. They helped me film my individual challenge video. Of course, I challenged the Titans, who I was playing for just a year before. And we come up with a plan to release my video that night, and then the Titans will do the challenge the next day. Well, that's the first time I was trending on Twitter. I thought I broke the internet. Everything went as planned, and the Ice Bucket Challenge raised over $100 million. You're welcome.
Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Well, that kind of, it started, or it was a movement that kind of led into the mission that, Steve and I are wearing our pullovers today from the golf event, TShawStrong, right? So tell me a little bit about what is TShawStrong and what is the mission, Tim?
TShawStrong is the nonprofit we created to help people living with ALS. We do that by actually providing support for people living with ALS, supporting research, and raising awareness. I never wanted a charity in my name, but it goes back to what we were saying earlier. You have to do the most you can to help others, and this is part of that for me.
So, Steve, you're involved in the organization, in the mission, and you're helping out with organize a bunch of the events and everything else. So, what else would you like to add about what you guys have done so far?
Yeah, so the golf tournament has been around 6 or 7 years. I think it took a couple years off for COVID, but some great people were supporting Tim with that idea to raise money for ALS, back in 2017-18. You had guys like Troy and Brian and Scott and Liz and Chuck Rutan and, of course, Tim's family. And so, primarily raising money through golf. And I think coming out of COVID, there was just a lot of conversations about, hey, if we're going to kick this thing up again, can we take it to another level? And is that something that you want to do, Tim? And Tim, Tim was a little bit hesitant to do those things because he's always donated directly to Team Gleason. Steve Gleason played for the Saints. Mm-hmm. He was diagnosed with ALS a few years prior to Tim.
Got it.
And, through their diagnosis, they became really good friends. And Tim was able to go down and kind of extract some personal experiences from Steve and, create that bond. And so majority of all the golf funds have gone to Team Gleason in the past. And then this year through a lot of dialogue with Tim and a lot of conversations about, what we could do in the future, Tim decided to start the TShawStrong Foundation. So this past year, fall of 2023, we brought in about $110,000 total, 65 of which will go out to Team Gleason, First Tee youth golf program, and probably some other things like the Titans One Foundation, and some more community outreach. I think prior till now, it was 100% of the funds would go to Team Gleason. Mm-hmm. And our plans is to continue to do that, send a lot of money through Team Gleason. Cause Steve was here first, he kind of started his foundation and was really plugged into ALS through his own experiences first. So, that we'll continue to do that. But I think, Tim runs other youth camps, in his hometown of Michigan, here in Tennessee with the Titans. And so I think you'll see us branch out and do some other things that are outside Team Gleason a little bit. I think you'll see us get into more of youth football, maybe even college football, right? Get into youth golf and really kind of spread the message of what we're talking about here today. Faith, family, friendship, community, and, kind of use the foundation as a platform to, touch more organizations, right? That is involved with safety and youth sports and all that stuff relative to ALS.
Tim, I believe you guys have another event already scheduled. When is the next TShawStrong event?
We are having a golf outing fundraiser in May. We are also going to be involved in a 5K in April. We would love to have you involved. People can keep up with what we have going on Instagram at TShawStrong. Or our website is TShawStrong.com. You can donate at our website too. Just go ahead and direct deposit your paycheck.
That's what I'm talking about. You don't get a deal you don't ask for, right? You don't get a deal you don't ask for. Well, hey, the next part is 2 parts, Tim. What can people do to help and how can we spread more awareness?
I would encourage you to get involved. Put yourself out there and do something for someone else. For TShawStrong, that means participating in one of our fundraisers. giving is great. And even more, spreading the word is helpful. I think the best way is to participate in an event, invite your friends and family, then share your experience on social media. This is helpful because it both raises money and awareness. The best of both worlds. It's like causing a fumble and then recovering it. Having a personal connection is huge too. I'd love to meet you at an event.
Absolutely, and we had a great time at the one this past year that just wrapped up that Steve was talking about. Steve, if you don't mind, do we have any direct asks that we're looking for the next one? Any vendors, any sponsors, anything that we need to make this sucker one of the greatest events in town in all of 2024?
Yeah, actually, we're looking for a cigar sponsor. I think that was left off this year. I think we need cigars in every cart.
Heck yeah.
Moving forward. I will say that, this was my first year with the foundation. It was my first year with the golf event. Part of that was just because we were starting to back up and trying to get the gang all back together. There was a spot open and I was able to participate. But I will say that the people that have put on the event prior to this year, and even this year, especially like Troy Stackhouse, who kind of spearheaded the golf tournament, right? And then you have a guy named Joshua Likens, who we hired as kind of a director of event kind of deal. But they killed it this year. They killed it. And I think it showed in the receipts, it showed in how much that we raised and the participation. I think one of the valuable things is the silent auction items. This year we had signed Larry Bird jerseys.
Dude, it was incredible.
Mike Tyson gloves signed. We had trips to Cabo and trips to different parts of Mexico. So I think Josh specifically and Troy, they crushed it this year. So I think for us, it's like, let's just continue to add on to that thing and make it a real entertainment event. We all go to golf events and we all play golf and then we get out of there. This is one of those events where Tim puts his spin on it. It becomes a really positive, full day affair. And you really do get the opportunity to meet all these people that have been in Tim's life and, sit down and have a drink and have a conversation about your experience with him, as well as maybe your experience, with ALS in a different area. A lot of football guys, Rudy Kalis, a lot of media. So, in terms of adding to it, I think, the more silent auction items we can have, I think that is something that, believe it or not, is real fruitful for the event. And then,
you guys set the bar pretty high with those. I'm just going to throw that out there.
No, it was really good. Those guys killed it this year. I'm very proud to be a part of what that crew put together. And, we're moving it from the fall to the spring, and so that we can do a fall event that's non-golf. Tim in the past, with that same group of people, they've put on comedy events, right, to raise money as well. So we weren't able to do that this year since the event moved into the fall. But I think we're going to get back into, at minimum, we're going to do the large golf tournament in the spring, and then we'll do an entertainment focused event in the fall.
So they were, I think it was Jake was telling me that Tim has had a little bit of a comedy career. And so I don't know, Tim, this isn't a part of our one of the pre-scripted questions to prepare for, but dude, would you be making an appearance on the stage for a little comedy bit?
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you the quick little story about I've told before about my son and my wife. And one of my son's responsibilities, Tim, is he's got to let the dog out, food, water. It's his dog. You know what I mean? It's his dog most days. And but sometimes we're in a hurry getting out to go to school in the morning. And then my wife and I will look at each other and be like, did he feed the dog? And we don't know because the food's not there and it might have got eaten. Maybe it never was there. And if you didn't know, I'm auditioning for the comedy section right now. Okay. So, we're sitting there and Ethan's at school and we look at each other. We don't know if the dog's been fed. Right. So my wife, Rhiannon, goes to check the food bowl and like a lot of things that a 13 or 14-year-old touches, it's not where it's supposed to be. So my wife is yelling at me from the other side of the house. She goes, "Hey, have you seen the dog bowl?" I was like, "Huh?" She was like, "Have you seen the dog bowl?" And I thought real hard about it, and I just the only response I knew is I was like, "Well, I didn't know that he did." Oh, that was a bad one. All right, so Tim, I had mentioned that you are a 2-time author, right? So you've written 2 more books than I have. However, I'm gonna let you know it's a bucket list item for me. It's a goal of mine to have. We're actually planning a 3-part series for myself, and I'm hoping to get the first one out in 2024. But you've put out 2 books. And they're fantastic, and the first one is called Blitz Your Life. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I have always wanted to write a book. Blitz Your Life was my achieving that goal. It's not the story of my life, but rather it's my philosophy of how to live life. It's full of my stories and stories of inspiring people that I know. Fun fact, I wrote the whole book by hand. Like, literally with pen and paper. And just as I finished, my right hand muscles gave up.
Wow, that's a little bit of a God thing right there. If I've ever seen one, you know what I mean. So, and I haven't written one, right? We just talked about that, but I have heard, some people hire ghostwriters now. You can literally talk into a microphone on your computer, or AI could write it. It's probably a lot easier to write a book than it was when you did yours. And so you wrote one. And it must have been good because they were asking for a second one, right? That's usually how you know, right? So your second book is probably one of the greatest book titles or titles of anything I've ever seen. And it's called On Turf as It Is in Heaven, which is absolutely brilliant. Can you tell me a little bit more about the second book?
I did not want to write a second book. My co-author from Blitz Your Life came to me with an idea for a devotional for athletes. I told him it was a great idea, but he should write it because I don't want to. But I agreed to write 2 entries. Next thing I knew, I had written 30 entries. So, On Turf as It Is in Heaven was meant to be. Fun fact, I wrote this book entirely with my eyes. Shameless plug. You can find my books on Shopify, or on Amazon, or on Martha Stewart's website. Just kidding about Martha.
Folks, you can check out those 2 books. Everybody finds just about anything on Amazon, right? So Blitz Your Life and On Turf as It Is in Heaven. Going out and snag those, get you a copy, learn. You will be blessed, right? All right, so Steve, hanging out with Tim and doing all these things with him, from the Tim Shaw that we knew that we saw play every Sunday to the amazing person that's sitting across from me today. You guys have traveled the world. You've played the finest golf courses on planet Earth. Some of the stories that you guys have shared with us, some may not be appropriate for this platform right here. However, that could be argued as well. But there's always some good ones, and you guys have done some great things. Tim, I bet there's a couple stories that kind of stand out to you right now that you might want to share with everybody.
You have some insider information about me and a fun story. I will admit that I like to enjoy an adult beverage from time to time. And now, I take all of my nutrition through a feeding tube that goes straight into my stomach. Well, I was in Rome, Italy with my best friend, and the feeling was right. So I had him pour an Italian beer down the tube. The story that you've heard. I'm with some buddies at the Waste Management Phoenix Open at the famous 16th hole. This place is a party and a half, so I decide that I need a drink. Of course it's going down the tube. I just so happen to be in the walkway in front of the whole grandstand. I'm wearing an orange Detroit Tigers hat, so the crowd starts chanting, "Orange hat! Orange hat." It was a good time.
Oh man, that's amazing. Steve, were you there when those things happened?
Yeah, I was present for that one. That was kind of a crazy day. If anybody's been to Waste Management, it is a party and a half. You've got, 200,000 a day that goes to the event.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like something to do for college, for for Arizona State, University of Arizona, plus all the golfers that want to come in and, watch PGA guys and party at the same time. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's a tournament where the PGA will go around and they'll get you to shotgun beers. They'll get you to party on camera. It's the one tournament of the year where they want you to, party like it's college football,
right?
Saturday, which is crazy in itself because that doesn't happen anywhere else on the PGA.
Okay.
So we were just in general admission. We were walking around the whole golf course, and we wanted to get in 16. 16 is the stadium course, is the stadium hole. Excuse me, and we were like, man, how are we going to get in there? We've got to do it. And we've got Tim with us. How the hell are we going to get in there? And luckily, the exit at hole 16 is a bunch of bathrooms, right? So we were able to kind of go up to the security guard and we were like, hey, our buddy over here, Tim, he's got to use the bathroom, right? Can we at least just go past you right here? We'll go to the bathroom and we'll leave. And so that's kind of what we did. And when we came out, we just noticed he wasn't paying attention, right? So we're able to put Tim kind of back in the chair. And
the guard wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, guard wasn't paying attention. So we just rolled up the exit ramp. Okay. So when you get in there, everybody has to have a seat. You can't stand in the walkway. There's staff that's running down the walkway trying to get you out of there, get you back in your seat. And so we got up in there and we were just hanging out in the walkway, like Tim said. And the usher came over to tell us to leave. And the whole stadium told that usher to stop bothering us and go away. They said it in a different way.
Yeah.
They said it in a different way, but they convinced him. And he let us stay right in that exit corner, right there, right in front of the green. And so throughout the time we were there, the crowd was calling out different people to shotgun beers. And of course, we're not thinking it's going to come to us, with Tim in the chair and all this kind of stuff. And then eventually it did. And they started yelling, orange hat, orange hat, orange hat. And we were like, what do we do? And so Tim eventually decided, hey, I'll take out the feeding tube and you guys can pour beer in the feeding tube. And
that's unbelievable.
So we started pouring beer in the feeding tube and he turned around and faced the crowd. And, everybody thought they were the biggest party monsters of the day. But when they saw Tim taking a beer through the feeding tube, you could hear different comments over the crowd. Not only was the crowd yelling, but you could hear people being like, holy crap, I can't believe this is going on right now. I'd never thought this would happen. You had PGA cameras on us and they kind of turned away.
Sure.
They were like, this is over the line, right? So you had PGA just hyping us up. And then when we started going crazy and actually drinking the beer, they kind of bailed and got out of there because they didn't want that on TV. It was one of those things that lined up that was a great experience for us, and it will always be a great story. But it was a crazy situation for that to go down the way that it did.
There's I can only imagine. I know from shotgunning a beer traditional style, I know that it gives you a little bit of a head rush. Unless you're a seasoned professional at it, which I'm not. But, and Tim, does it, this could just be yes or no. Is it better to shotgun it that way than the traditional way?
It's easier for sure.
They say you only live once. And, again, when you think about one of the things that I love about the holidays, and sometimes I think this is why we have holidays, is because life goes so fast. I might not remember much from, 2019, but I remember Christmas. I remember Thanksgiving. I remember Valentine's Day. I remember Easter. I remember New Year's. I remember where I was at, who we were with when we had those moments. And, a lot of those fans that were at that event, they probably go to many golf events. They're, you know what I mean? Those people are committed. And I guarantee you, if you ask any of those people that were there, some of their top stories from a golf event, especially one on that to that level, that moment will live in infamy. It will stick out to them, and they will always remember it. And that's such a cool thing because, again, we talked about it before. People don't always remember what you say, but they always remember how you made them feel. And kudos to you, man, for, I think we can all take ourselves a little bit too seriously. I take what I do seriously, not myself, right? And I think Tim's a great example of that. So, brother, I appreciate you sharing those stories. Those were, I'm sure there's too many to count, but those two are fantastic, and I love them. The Hit Streak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com. All right, Tim, we mentioned before that, one of the things that's most impressive, at least to me, about you is the success and the impact you've had in the world of business, specifically here in Nashville, right? So Steve alluded to it earlier that with a disease like ALS, your mind isn't affected; it's your physical body. And goodness, with the time I've spent around you, your mind is as sharp as ever. And I think one of the biggest kept secrets about you is your business mind and your success, right? So, what are some of the top 3 most interesting things about your business life?
I don't talk publicly about my business life. I guess trying to be humble. But I'm really not that humble, so let's talk about it. I love business, investing, real estate, and making deals. I definitely left the NFL with a head start financially. And again, my belief is that we are supposed to make the most of what God has given us. So that's what I try to do in business also. Okay, 3 interesting things about my business life. 1. I have owned a part of a fitness company in Nashville for over 10 years. Actually with my guy Steve here. Hotbox Fitness. I worked out there while I was playing, and it was so awesome that I bought a piece of it too. I actually got my master's in business from George Washington University at the very end of my NFL career. And 3. My favorite part about business is finding the deal.
I agree. It's a rush, man. It's competitive, right? It's competitive. It feels a lot like sports. I know I get a lot of my creative juices, or competitive juices, I should say, that I miss from the field in the world of business. And it can be intense, and it's such a great time. They say that pressure breaks some men, and it causes some men to break records. That's what William Arthur Ward said. They say that the same pressure that bursts pipes makes diamonds, right? So some thrive under pressure and some don't. Tim, can you tell us a little bit about maybe like what you're working on right now? Anything in particular?
Right now, I'm exploring a development deal. Nashville has been so good to us real estate investors. We've been spoiled. So we are having to try to interpret this unique economy. But there are still opportunities. I'm also trying to convince the Titans owner to let me in on the new stadium. Just kidding. But Amy, if you were listening, I'm not kidding.
No doubt, man. No doubt. And I know the whole town's excited about that new stadium, right? So it's going to be something to see, no doubt. Tim, when you think about your future, it's probably something that we all should think about more than we do. But it's probably something that you think about on a daily basis. What does your future in business look like?
There are a few reasons that I keep doing business even though I'm going through this difficult disease. Not only do I enjoy it, but it also keeps my brain working. On top of that, I believe that some people are gifted to make money so that they can give money away. So I'm going to keep making so I can keep giving. I really don't know what my business future looks like, but I'm excited to see what opportunities come my way.
Keeping your eyes and heart wide open, right? Wide open. So, Steve, you've been doing business with Tim for, I guess the better part of a decade now, if not longer. What's it like doing business with a guy like him? And maybe what's some things that you've even learned from working with him?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway with Tim is faith. We talked about religion earlier, but I think he has faith in everybody he comes across. He gives everyone the benefit of the doubt. He gives respect right off the bat. Tim is an optimistic investor, and that's a strength for him. He believes in the people that he's doing business with until they prove him wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Is
it a 0-strike policy or a 1-strike policy?
With Tim, I think it's a case-by-case basis.
There you go.
I think Tim is slowly but surely getting me to be a lot more optimistic and a lot more faithful in people. But Tim brings a lot of excitement to business. Business sometimes can be very monotonous.
Mm-hmm.
It can, be very mechanical. But he brings a lot of excitement. I think he does that through faith, right? Again, whether it be religion or his faith in people. To me, that is, it's a general understanding, but it's a big one for me. He's always been the one to say, hey, let's believe in this person. Let's give them an opportunity. They haven't proven me wrong yet. And so, it's good for me. It's definitely therapeutic for me because, I would like to go in there and ask a ton of questions and micro detail it a lot. And I'm not saying that he doesn't want to do that, but at the same time, he wants me to remember like there's a little bit of faith involved here.
Right.
And so we have to do our best to make a good decision. And then from there, let's have faith in whoever's leading that project that they're going to come out and be as successful as they proposed to our group.
I'm gonna tell a quick little story about Rhiannon and I lost a friend earlier this year due to a sickness that she didn't know that she had, and it was very sudden. And one of the most powerful things that I've ever seen or heard anybody do was the mother of our friend, excuse me, the mother of our friend. She stood up there at the pulpit and she said, she mentioned that she told a story that she had suddenly lost her husband a few years back. And then she said that she was standing here and she had just suddenly lost her daughter. And she stood up there in front of everybody and thanked her Lord Jesus for having enough trust in her to handle her suddenlies. You know what I mean? And it was unbelievably powerful. God chooses his angels very, very carefully. And God knew way before Tim or us or anybody else that Tim was somebody that could be a beacon of hope for others, and knew that he could handle it and still find fulfillment and live his life, in helping and serving others, right? So, again, you find the gifts are in the challenges, and again, I don't want to, I would never say that what Tim is going through is a gift. However, he would probably correct me if I said that, you know what I'm saying? But again, God uses this in so many different ways, and that's where you find God is in other people. And, God trusted Tim to handle this situation, and he's handled it with the ultimate class and grace. It's just an honor to be in the same room with him, right? So we're talking a little bit about business, Tim. You're great at helping others. You inspire others. What advice would you give to those who let their life circumstances keep them from chasing their goals?
Guys, people, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, life is difficult. That's a guarantee. There's no way to avoid hardship. But we get to decide how we respond to life. Believe me, there are much greater examples than myself of how to overcome adversity. As humans, we get to choose our attitude and our actions. Me? I choose positivity. I choose to make steps towards things that make a difference. If you are letting your outward circumstances affect your inner attitude, start with thanking God for some things in your life. Thankfulness is a good place to start. Now, if you have let your hard times stop you from going after a goal, I encourage you to find one small thing you can do to get you going in the right direction. Could be as small as writing the goal down or even telling someone about it. Take that step, then find the next step. But ultimately, you have to choose to not let the hard thing control your life. Choose.
Somebody once told me that where everybody is at today is simply just a reflection of every single choice they've made up to that point that led them to this moment, right? So those choices are extremely powerful. And to echo what Tim just said, you make those choices, all the things that you're going through are gifts, right? So those things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you. And you got to make life's an offensive sport. So when you're making those choices, be on the offense. Tim, you never scored no touchdowns on accident, I don't think. I think they were all intentional. I think all those championships were intentional. Life's an offensive sport, right? So, folks, we're hanging with retired Tennessee Titan Tim Shaw, two-time author, ALS Warrior, founder of the TShawStrong Foundation, and as you've heard today, self-proclaimed semi-pro golfer. Folks, check him out on online at TShawStrong.com and on Instagram at TShawStruth. And on Instagram at TShawTruth. And yeah, I got that right. I spelled it wrong. Let me fix that. Boom. And on Instagram at TShawTruth. And big shout out to my co-host, my guy Steve Shelton, for hanging out with me today. Tim, I got one final question for you. All right. And this is one that I've never asked anybody on the Hitstreak before. So I'm on the edge of my seat, if you can't tell, right? So, and this is a big one. Tim, at the end of the day, man, and this is something that we should all ask ourselves. How do you want to be remembered?
If people are going to remember me, and they don't have to, I want them to remember that I was a man who loved Jesus and who chose to make the most of what God gave me.
If you don't mind, I'm going to borrow and continue to use that myself. When I get asked that question, I'm going to give that exact same answer. Is that going to be all right? The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial. So, Steve, is there anything you'd like to add as far as what folks can do for the foundation, for the events? Right now it's the golf fundraiser with the comedy one coming in the fall, and who knows what else is on the horizon, right? So, the people that want to step up and help, what can they do?
Yeah, I think they just need to be on the lookout for the foundation. We're in our first year. We plan on growing pretty significantly over the next 2 or 3 years. We're going to try to see if we can have partnerships with the Titans program, community outreach program to reach more youth athletes. But really, I think generally speaking, ALS is really this one-off type of diagnosis that nobody really understands. And so the more that people can start to understand, as well as fund research programs like stem cell research or alternative therapies, puts us kind of in a position to help people coming down the pipeline with this disease. This is something that if you catch early, maybe there's a chance of being able to stop it in its path. But I think you have to seek alternative therapies to do that. Mm-hmm. The U.S. right now is probably not the leader in that category. So I just think that, if anybody has an athlete, it's good to participate in this kind of, this kind of nonprofit or this kind of, philanthropy, because I think it does affect people directly and indirectly. And we've got a lot of athletes out there that need to learn about safety. And then you have people also too that maybe get in car wrecks or have falls, and those things can turn into ALS too. And so I think we just need to do a lot more research and just people kind of get behind, trying to get an understanding on this disease and trying to find a cure.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, thanks so much for the time today and all your help in lining this up, man. Again, this is something that we really, really wanted to do here. It's very special to us, and I'm very grateful for the connection and everything else. And Tim, dude, bro, you freaking killed it, as you do in life. You absolutely crushed it, man. And I hope we did our part and we gave you a good time. And I hope that I trust that this episode's going to do everything. It's going to make the impact it's meant to make, man. But again, just for putting yourself out there like you always do, running right into the storm like you always do, brother. It's been an honor and a pleasure to spend the time with you today.
This was a blast. Thank you so much, Nick.
Well, folks, there you have it. I'm extremely proud of this episode, and I know that you enjoyed it too, right? So, folks, thanks so much for tuning into another episode of the Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.